And then I saw her face. I'm a believer, and not a trace of doubt in my mind. I'm in love.
Hey guys, COHD here, and I am back with another reaction video. And today I'm going to be reacting to another MLP fanfic reading by The Lost Narrator, and this one's called The Friendship Test. And this one is a grimdark. As for this video, this was posted a year ago, and I heard it's like really good. And the story is by Magpie Pony. You know, this should be good, and it's like almost an hour long. I hope we'll survive that long. Anyways, let's jump it in!
Warning. The following reading contains subject matter that some listeners might find disturbing. Listener discretion is advised.
Okay. Let's get on with the story.
Dead weight.
Now.
That is what Twilight's limbs felt like, as her mind finally stirred to consciousness. Her eyes fluttered as she tried to focus on her surroundings, allowing them to adjust to the faint light. In the cold confines of this unfamiliar place, 5 bodies stood motionless. Twilight's heart began to race. Her first instinct was to lighten the room with her magic, but her horn refused to respond. Her breath began to quicken as she looked for windows, doors, anything that could help her identify the location. Instead, all she could see were stone bare walls. It was at that same moment that she spotted each of her friends. They stood frozen in a circle around the room, their eyes shut as if in a peaceful sleep. With no obvious light source, Twilight strained to make out what illuminated their bodies. When she focused hard enough, she could make out a single translucent sliver of magic that surrounded them like a ring. Her eyes darted to her own body, and she realized that she was surrounded by what seemed to be a spell. Though it was rare, this spell was unmistakable. Across
Fluttershy?
the room, Fluttershy began to whimper
Fluttershy.
softly, as she too came to consciousness.
Fluttershy?
Twilight asked, trying to maintain her composure.
Twilight, where are we? Don't move, Fluttershy.
Mary Medley.
The spell holding us in place is dangerous. Whatever you do, don't leave the circle. Do you understand?
Fluttershy merely nodded in response.
Who's the Twilight voice?
What's going on, Twi? Applejack asked. Twilight and Fluttershy turned
The
to
Lost
see their
Narrator,
friend
Applejack
with a
voice.
hoof raised.
I knew that.
She hesitated to take a step after she heard Twilight's warning.
It's old magic. Something that was once used to contain dangerous things. Or dangerous ponies. Anything that leaves the rim of this circle will be met with a shock. A tip of the hoof can send a wave of electrical current through the body. But anything more than that can be deadly.
Twilight explained, her expression grave.
And we got the whole main 6.
That doesn't make a lick of sense, Twi. Who in Equestria would do such a thing?
I don't know,
Applejack
AJ.
asked angrily.
What's going on? Applejack? Is that you?
Rarity called out groggily.
Emagag Rarity. I think.
What's going on?
Rainbow Dash interjected.
And Rainbow Dash by
My head feels swimmy-wimmy.
The Lost Narrator.
Yucky.
Pinkie Pie added.
And Pinkie Pie by
Move.
Magpie Pony.
Hooves inside the ring until I can figure out how to get us out of here.
Very good, Twilight. I knew I could count on you to keep every pony safe before our little test.
Twilight's ears perked up at the 7th voice in the room. Her head snapped to the source of the sound. She tried to focus her eyes on it.
Who was that?
Twilight knew that voice.
Starlight? What's going on?
Starlight?
And how did we get here?
I think
Twilight
that's
asked
I'm
cautiously.
Shadow
Starlight
007
glimmer slowly
as
slipped
Twilight.
out from a dark corner. and used her magic to ignite the torches resting on each wall. Her face was blank of any emotion.
Yep, there's Starlight right
A
there.
short time ago, I had a thought. You see, my magic seems to be just as powerful as yours, which is quite impressive given the fact that I am still a unicorn. And that got me thinking, is the so-called magic of friendship really all it's cracked up to be?
She asked, positioning herself in the middle of the circle of friends.
What are you talking about? Just let us out of here.
Rainbow Dash insisted, ruffling her wings and suppressing the urge to take off in flight.
All in good time, Rainbow, all in good time. Now, where was I? Hi.
Is that My Pony playing Starlight?
I am a grown mare with enough magic to con an entire village out of their cutie marks, alter a time travel spell, assist in the reconstruction of the Crystal Heart, brainwash you all without breaking a sweat, and take on the entire Changeling Hive. Does that sound like some pony who still needs lessons in the magic of friendship?
What are you saying?
I'm saying that I realize that I don't need your friendship, and I certainly don't need the second-rate magic that I gave to all of you. Still, you six are impressive. You've saved Equestria enough times to warrant some attention. I merely want to test
you were
your
defeated a
magic
couple
against my
times.
own. I want to see what happens when the
In
six
that
spirits
second
of
defeat,
harmony are
you
forced
changed.
to face the traits that they embody. Maybe then we will
No,
know
wait.
what true power
Twilight gave you a
friendship
second
has in
chance.
Equestria.
You don't know what you're saying, Starlight. You've seen first hoof how powerful friendship can be. I thought you embraced it and understood where you went wrong.
I did try. I did everything you stupid little ponies said would bring my life fulfillment, but you can't erase a lifetime of emptiness and disappointment. Your petty friendship tests can't be assigned to me like school-filly homework. And even after I proved myself, I still wasn't given a throne in your castle or a real place in Ponyville. And it's all because of my past. You still can't trust me, can you? If you ponies had seen what I tried to do in the past, you all would have sent me to Tartarus, had Twilight not stopped you. Friendship is a lie!
Starlight screamed, the vengeance seeping from her last word.
Jeez, Starlight, what's gotten into
Through her
you?
throat, and
You
replaced her
snapped?
tears with the mask of unfeeling, pretending the lapse of emotion hadn't happened.
That's not true. I have lots of friends and I never leave them feeling icky, lonely feelings.
Pinkie interjected.
There's really no point in reasoning with me. The test has already begun. You see,
And you're too late!
heroism has always been based on your ability to embrace generosity, kindness, laughter, loyalty, honesty, and magic. But what if you were given a situation where those exact traits could harm rather than help you?
You've gone mad.
Rarity exclaimed.
As Twilight kindly explained, the rings around each of you are quite deadly. This spell certainly was a difficult one to dig up, but the Princess of Friendship wouldn't dream of having an incomplete library at her disposal. So it was only a matter of time till I found what I needed. There's really no use in trying to use your own magic, Twilight and Rarity. I've already disabled it before you were brought here. The spell they used at the Equestria Games was very helpful with that. Now, there will be 6 tests conducted, each based on those 6 harmony traits. When the tests are over, you can go free and punish me however you see fit, proving that once and for all that your magic does surpass my own. If, however, you can't or won't perform, I doubt you will be leaving this room alive.
Starlight held her chin high, her eyes gazing down upon Twilight.
Alive? What do you mean alive?
Fluttershy quivered.
Well, it's not a very good test of extreme situations if the stakes aren't high enough. But let's not waste any more time with questions. I'm sure you're all just as eager as I am to begin.
Starlight's horn lit up and dragged a strange device from another corner of the room into the center with her.
Well, I don't see
It
it.
appeared to be a large
What kind of device is it?
metal egg, resting atop a tray of firewood. Inside the egg were coals and a long metal poker.
Wait,
Starlight's
egg?
eyes remained locked on
is
Twilight
Spike gonna be in that
as her
egg?
magic engulfed the wood into a fiery blaze. The girls all stared in wonder and terror as the metal began to turn bright sun red. Twilight's eyes widened as she understood what the actual metal poker was. Starlight took the branding iron from out of the egg and gingerly twirled it around the mares who stood before her.
This first test is a test of kindness. Each of you will be given a choice. You can either be kind to your neighbor and elect to have the branding iron used on yourself, or you can abandon your kindness and brand the pony to your right instead.
Brandon? Brandon what?
Applejack demanded, stamping her hoof angrily.
Why, your flank, of course.
Flank?
It's a bit of a callback to my life before you ponies ruined
That's gotta be
everything.
really
Not to
painful.
mention it will satisfy my urge for vengeance to see a scorched and permanent equal sign scarred over your oh-so-special cutie marks.
Starlight's tone slipped from calculating to scorn as she betrayed her emotions she was working to suppress.
I refuse to take your stupid test! I won't let you hurt me or my friends!
Ah, but that's the best part. You see, you'll only have 30 seconds to make your choice, and if a choice is not made, or you decide to get bold and try to escape, one of your friends will be killed at random by the circles containing you now. You didn't think I would make this easy, did you? Let's start with the elements of kindness herself. Fluttershy.
Uh-oh.
Starlight narrowed her eyes on her prey,
I have a feeling
pointing
this
the
is gonna be
branding
bad.
iron at her first test subject. She placed the iron back in the egg to heat as she released her magical grip on Fluttershy. This left the frightened Pegasus free to move about.
Fluttershy, would you rather I brand one side of your flank, or will you brand one of Pinky's? You have 30 seconds.
Starlight grinned as her horn lit up a large illuminated countdown that hovered over Fluttershy's head. Fluttershy stood motionless in shocked silence, her whimpers getting caught in her throat. Though her friends shouted words of encouragement and advice, their voices were a muffled buzz of unintelligible noises in her head. Her thoughts focused on the betrayal of Starlight's trust in the little village she had helped to free. Had Starlight singled her out because of what she had done? She looked at the branding iron as tears began to cascade down her soft yellow cheeks.
Fluttershy? Fluttershy, just do it. It's okay. I'll let you brand my cutie mark. I can't. You have to, Fluttershy. Time's running out. You have to do this. I understand. I forgive you.
Pinky's voice quivered as tears filled her eyes. A smirk spread on Starlight Glimmer's face. She said nothing, but levitated a parchment in front of her to jot down the test effects on its subjects.
Your time is up, Fluttershy. What will it be?
Starlight said,
It's gonna be
pulling the
Pinky's.
branding iron from the hot coals.
I'll brand Pinky.
Fluttershy
Yep.
whispered in defeat,
Fluttershy's gonna do
hanging her
it.
head. Starlight levitated the branding iron to Fluttershy, who shakily grasped the handle. Soon after, Pinky's circle disappeared, and she stared into Fluttershy's frightened eyes.
Just get it over with, Fluttershy.
Pinky stammered, unsure of what to expect, but fearing the worst, she shut her eyes.
Pinky, I'm so sorry.
Now, Fluttershy,
Didn't
you have
Pinky
to press
just
into
forgive
the
you already?
card and hold it there for 5 seconds. If you fail to do so, I will brand you and Pinky myself, and I will not be gentle.
Starlight cautioned, still jotting down notes. Fluttershy could only cry harder in response, and Pinky's mane deflated. Their friends continued to scream in protest, but no pony could hinder the inevitable.
1, 2, 3, 4,
Jeez.
5.
That'd be terrifying!
Fluttershy cried out in anguish as she pressed the branding iron into Pinky's flank, almost matching the scream of pain from Pinky's
Fluttershy's-
response.
Fluttershy's gonna give her friends a heart attack!
As Starlight counted each agonizing second out loud. When the time was up, Fluttershy dropped the iron and fell to the ground in a puddle of her own tears. Pinky's legs gave out and she too fell onto the unforgiving stone floor, gasping for air between each sob.
Very good, Fluttershy. Now let's give Pinkie a moment to gather her wits, and then she'll make the choice. Back to your circle, please.
Starlight said in a mocking pleasant tone as she placed the iron back into the metal egg. Fluttershy crawled to her position in the circle and curled into herself, facing away from her friends in shame. Starlight reignited the magic circle around her, then turned her attention to Pinkie Pie.
Now, Pinkie Pie.
Alright.
Would you rather brand Rarity, or have me brand your other flank?
Starlight asked, as she methodically placed the branding iron within Hoof's reach. Pinkie could barely speak, but the timer appeared above her head regardless. She shakily pulled herself off the ground, grasped the branding iron, and shot Rarity a terrified glance.
Oh, Pinkie?
Jeez.
Choose Rarity?
Pinkie said, dropping her gaze.
Pinkie, please, no. Pinkie,
It's the only way.
you.
Otherwise, Pinkie's gonna die.
I don't want to lose them both.
Pinkie stuttered, shooting a glance at her unbranded flank.
Interesting.
Starlight noted coldly, jotting down more notes. As Starlight released her magical hold on Rarity, she caught a glimpse of the panic in Rarity's eyes.
Remember, Rarity, if you attempt to leave, one of your friends will pay with their life.
You're a monster!
Rarity shouted moments
Jeez
before
almighty.
Pinkie pushed the iron into her fur. Rarity screamed and stumbled to the ground immediately, but Pinkie held the iron in place for all the required seconds. When it was over, she shuffled back to her spot and continued crying in silence. Rarity gingerly brushed the singed fur from her flank as she gasped for breath.
Your turn, Rarity.
Starlight noted, magicking the timer above the unicorn's head.
Rarity,
I choose Twilight.
Wow, that was fast.
Yeah, pretty
Starlight
fast.
commented in a gleeful manner, jotting down more notes.
I was going to let you anyway, Rarity.
Twilight muttered, stunned at how quickly the decision was made.
I didn't want you to have to be brave for my sake, Twilight.
Rarity stuttered, trying to clarify. By this point in the friendship test, the other ponies had stopped shouting their objections and useless comfort. Instead, there was only a dead silence, broken only by the sounds of pain. Twilight squeezed her eyes shut, and each of her friends turned their heads away when the branding iron made contact. Her screams of anguish brought a sick smile of satisfaction to Starlight Glimmer's face. Starlight hurried Rarity back into her place, eager to give the princess a turn. While Twilight was still doubled
Hey
over
guys,
in pain,
Rainbow's gonna take that.
Starlight presented her with the branding iron.
Take the branding.
Twilight, how about you?
Twilight stood her ground, tears pouring down her cheeks. She looked Starlight directly in the eyes, not wanting to give the unicorn any satisfaction by her response.
Brand me again.
Twilight replied with a cold, unforgiving
Wait,
glare.
brand Twilight again?
What? No! Twilight, that's not fair! You don't have to lose both!
Brand me again, Starlight.
I figured you would make that choice. I am interested to know if this takes your special talent away, seeing how it's irreversible. But that doesn't matter to you, does it? You just have to be the strong and the kind one. Set an example.
Just do it!
Gosh!
Starlight didn't hesitate.
Seriously, go over yourself
She used her
again?
magic to violently ram the branding iron into the princess's other flank. She used so much force that Twilight skid helplessly along the ground as she did so. Twilight's screams turned into gargled sobs as her friends stared in terror. Starlight took the iron away after 5 seconds, as agreed, and contained Twilight to the magic circle again.
You're up, Rainbow Dash.
Starlight said smugly. Rainbow looked at Applejack with determination. The timer over her head was counting down, while the branding iron was reheated. Rainbow wasn't going to stand idly by and let this madness continue. A sporadic and desperate thought sparked into Rainbow's mind as she eyed Applejack. While their gaze was locked, Rainbow tried to convey a smile of reassurance
Gosh
despite the
darn it,
next
the
words
vacuum.
coming out of her mouth.
I choose to brand Applejack.
Rainbow
Oh, no.
stammered, pretending
Rainbow,
to
you
have wrestled
shouldn't
with
do
the
that. Just brand
decision.
yourself.
That's unexpected.
Starlight observed, writing down more notes before pulling the iron from the fire. Rainbow's
please, Rainbow,
illuminated
don't do it.
fizzled
Please
away,
don't.
And
Not
without
my love.
hesitation,
Not my love.
She sprang from her place towards the pony that held them captive. She didn't need to jump very far to reach the unicorn, but was deflected away by an invisible shield Starlight used to protect herself. Suddenly, the spell containing Applejack
Was
began
Rainbow gonna
to
brand
glow.
Starlight?
In a fraction of a second, an electrical shock zapped the earth pony with such a force that the room flashed with a blinding white light and a mighty cracking sound was heard.
Did you ponies really think that I wouldn't have thought ahead? What exactly do you take me for?
Starlight snapped bitterly.
Did AJ lose her color?
That her precious test had gone awry.
Applejack!
Rainbow screamed, falling over the
Starlight, you
body
pay for
of
this.
her friend.
You give my lady's color back.
I was just trying to make it stop. Applejack, please. No.
You still have to brand her, Rainbow Dash. That was your decision.
Rainbow, you had to brand her.
Now,
Or
now,
yourself.
you don't want the same thing happening to another one of your friends, do you?
Rainbow angrily swiped the iron from Starlight and pushed it into Applejack's flank. Not a single sound was heard.
Wait, what?
Except the sizzling of flesh. Starlight retrieved the iron.
How is AJ
and
not
pointed in the
screaming
direction
if she's
of
being
Rainbow's
branded?
original spot. Rainbow didn't need to be told twice. She too curled in place, faced away from her friends.
My. It seems you lucked out, Fluttershy. With Applejack gone, there's no pony left to make a choice. And since you've already had your turn, I suppose I can let you keep your marks. Ironic, isn't it? The element of kindness was in fact not kind at all to poor Pinkie Pie, but she remains unmarred by a brand. I'd say that was a failed test for kindness.
Starlight observed, jotting down the final notes of the kindness portion of her test. Starlight lit her horn to douse the fire beneath the metal egg, and pushed it back into one of the dark corners of the room. Next, she magicked a simple dagger with an ornament handle.
Wait, a
and
dagger?
thin but hard metal rod and placed them at Rainbow Dash's hooves.
Since Rainbow Dash here took it upon herself to break the rules and rob us of our dear Applejack, I believe it's only fitting that we resume our test with the subject of loyalty.
Fuck you.
This
Okay.
test is also about choices, though it will be made quite clear that they are far more deadly than the last. Rainbow Dash, how far does your loyalty go for your friends? Will you take the dagger and stab Princess Twilight to the hilt? Or
Hilt?
allow me to give
Wait,
you
what's the
3
hilt?
swift lashes with this metal rod?
Rainbow remained silent as the timer above her head counted down.
5 seconds, Rainbow Dash. It's not very fitting to allow another
What's a
friend
hilt?
to
Is
die
it- is
just
that like your
because you
side?
refused to
Rod!
Rainbow screamed, startling Starlight at the
What did
intensity
Rainbow
of
say?
her response. Starlight removed the magic encasing Rainbow Dash, and she pounced, though not at her, but instead to the remains of Applejack. Rainbow covered Applejack's body with her own, as if protecting her friend. Starlight lifted the metal rod with her magic and brought it down hard on Rainbow's back. Rainbow wailed into Applejack
Now I know what a hilt
the instant
is.
the rod struck. It came
It's a
down
pony's
2 more
back.
times, leaving the Pegasus with great bruises and lesions on her back that nearly missed her wings.
Now, Twilight, will
The
you...
rod.
Twilight said, almost emotionless.
Oh, the rod. Is
You
that what
didn't
Rainbow
let me
said?
finish.
Starlight said with a smirk.
Twilight, will you stab Rarity to the hilt? Or give Rainbow Dash 3 more lashes?
Screamed Pinkie Pie in horror.
It's all a part of loyalty, Pinkie
Also,
Pie. Where
lashes are like
does
punch.
Loyalty lie?
And then
Starlight
Stabbing the
wondered
hilt
aloud,
is like
locking
your
her
second
gaze
choice?
on the horrified princess.
seriously, what kind of fic
All
is
my
this?
friends, I'd rather you take my life then subject me to this sick decision.
But that's just not how the test is performed. If you refuse to choose, I suppose there's a 1 in 5 chance that it'd be you that was killed. But I don't think the Princess of Friendship is willing to play the odds.
Starlight retorted. Twilight looked at Rainbow Dash, still sprawled over Applejack, then Rarity.
A knife can do serious damage no matter where it is stabbed. It doesn't
Yeah, I
give
mean,
me
knives
any
can kill ya.
benefits at all.
Twilight, no! You can't!
Starlight presented the rod to Twilight and stood back to give her ample space.
Just do it, Twi.
Hit her hard, Twilight, or it won't count.
Starlight said, keeping a close eye on the princess's movements. Twilight squeezed her eyes shut and brought the rod down hard on Rainbow's back. A sickening
Jeez.
snap was heard, and the Pegasus screamed in agony. When Twilight opened her eyes to see what had happened, she noticed Rainbow's right wing now laid helpless down on her side, the bone clearly fractured.
Rainbow, I'm so sorry.
Twilight screamed, realizing her mistake. Rainbow just continued to sob.
2 more, Twilight.
Starlight reminded her. Twilight kept her eyes open for the remaining lashes, avoiding her wings as best as she could. Starlight nodded in approval, and the princess returned to her place. All eyes focused in on Rarity, as it was her turn to make a choice.
Stab me, Rarity, please!
Pinkie demanded, watching Rainbow struggle to breathe from the pain.
Now, Pinkie, this is Rarity's choice, not yours. Your time will come.
If I were to choose the blade, where would I have to stab Pinkie Pie?
Anywhere you like, though it must be to the hilt.
Starlight
Or the
calmly
heart.
said,
Rarity, don't!
Stabbing through the heart could
There are
do
too many places
a lot
that
of
could kill
damage.
her.
Oh, come now, Twilight. The blade isn't that long. There are plenty of places that would keep Pinkie Pie alive.
Starlight said, rolling her eyes.
Rainbow?
I know, Rarity. You have to do it.
No, Rarity, she can't take much more!
Rarity disregarded Pinkie's outcries and levitated the rod as her choice. She would have kept her eyes closed, but she learned from Twilight's mistake not to do so. The rod came down hard 3 more times, and the Pegasus moaned softly with each new strike.
And Rainbow
Now
dies.
it is your turn, Pinkie Pie.
Starlight said, placing the 2 objects before her. Pinkie looked up at Fluttershy, who was shaking her head and pleading to be spared.
She'll die, Fluttershy! I have to do this!
Pinkie cried. She grasped the blade and took a shaky step in Fluttershy's direction. Fluttershy pleaded for Pinkie to reconsider, but Pinkie tuned out her cries, thinking only of the pain she would be sparing Rainbow Dash.
Pinkie's gonna kill Fluttershy? Oh!
The blade made contact with Fluttershy's back left leg, and the Pegasus wailed in response. Pinkie had been aiming for something closer to her hoof, but the combination of her blurred, teary-eyed vision and Fluttershy's reflective movements had landed the dagger closer to her flank. Pinkie noted the excess blood already pouring from the Pegasus's leg, but she knew the job wasn't complete. To the hilt, Starlight had said, and Pinkie didn't want to be reminded. Fluttershy saw Pinkie approaching her again and tried to make an escape. She pounced, pinning the Pegasus to the
Jeez.
ground and forcing the blade deeper into her friend's flesh until Starlight was satisfied.
You're lucky that Pinkie Pie had the sense to stop you, Fluttershy. Your impulses could have cost some pony her life.
Starlight pointed out.
Am I going to die?
Fluttershy
Yeah, pretty much.
panicked, covering the wound with her hooves as Starlight pried the dagger free. Once the blade was free, a spurt of blood followed, but the flow eased as Fluttershy applied pressure.
Hard to say, really. Only time will tell. Though I'm sure Rainbow Dash was grateful for the decision.
Starlight said, guiding a silent Pinkie Pie back to her place. Pinkie didn't care to look up from the ground to see the damage she had done.
Now yours is an interesting choice, Fluttershy. You can whip Rainbow 3 more times, or stab any player of your choosing.
Fluttershy whimpered in pain and reached out for the metal rod.
Fluttershy, wait!
Stop me! Stop me! I can't.
Fluttershy said, wobbling on 3 hooves with the metal rod held by her wing.
I'm sorry, Rainbow. I just can't stop some pony. I can't.
Then you caused yourself to kill
Made a
yourself.
soft gurgle sound in response. Fluttershy grunted and brought the rod down lightly on her friend.
That doesn't count.
Please. Please don't make me do this.
You know the penalty, Fluttershy.
Starlight reminded. Fluttershy cried out in anger and came down hard with the metal rod. She swung to hit again, but missed and hit Applejack instead.
Oh.
Her vision blurred with tears as she brought it down for
No,
one
not
final
AJ!
time, making contact with Rainbow's broken wing. Every pony expected screams of anguish from Rainbow in response, but she remained silent.
She's already dead.
Rainbow! Rainbow! Say something, please!
One more, Fluttershy. Quickly now.
Fluttershy brought the rod down for a 5th time, and once again Rainbow made no response.
Dashi! Dashi!
Pinkie screamed Rainbow's name repeatedly, and Fluttershy dropped the rod in shock. Starlight leaned down to examine Rainbow, noting the severity of the lacerations and the discolored fur along her back.
Internal bleeding and possibly a damaged organ. I'm afraid our dear Rainbow Dash has left us.
Oh.
Proving that loyalty to your friends is indeed
Now Rainbow
subjective.
became
Not all friends are created
gray.
equal for you ponies, are they?
Starlight said, feigning sorrow at Rainbow's death. Starlight jotted down more notes on her parchment, while the remaining 4 ponies mourned in shocked silence. When she finished, she ignited
Now the
her
only
horn,
4
and a burst
are
of magic
Twilight,
filled the
Rarity,
room.
Pinkie, and
When it
Fluttershy.
struck each pony in the chest, they were left momentarily dazed, before collapsing unconscious on the ground.
Sorry I had to spring this one on you all, but it was so much quieter and easier to place you here myself while you were unconscious.
Starlight's voice echoed as the 4 remaining friends slowly regained consciousness. They were no longer standing in the circle, but were instead held up by their hooves against the wall, side by side.
Now we're in the
Metal
torture
straps held them
chamber.
in place, and the strange chamber that held them appeared to be made of reinforced glass. It didn't take long to
Reinforced
notice that it
glass?
was built for 6 pony
Is Starlight gonna
captives,
stab
but there were
Twilight,
obviously 2
Rarity,
missing participants.
Fluttershy, and Pinkie Pie?
An Applejack!
Pinkie demanded,
Well,
craning her neck to see
the Lost
if their
Narrators
bodies were still within sight.
Characters are gone.
Refrain from opening your
The
mouth.
Lost Narrator is out
Pinkie Pie.
of doing voice acting in this
Test of
video.
laughter, after all. You know, they say that laughter is the best medicine and it can cure any ailment. Well, I'm going to test that with you 4 ponies. In a few moments, your enclosure will be flooded with
Oh
the
gosh,
gaseous
tickle
substance
torture?
of my own creation.
This shouldn't be tickle
A
torture.
mixture of toxicity and laughter.
Starlight, you don't have any feathers, do
When
you?
inhaled, will burn through the back of your throats, causing irreversible internal
Hopefully you don't have any
damage.
feathers.
It's mostly attracted to
But
moist places.
peck one off of
breathing
Fluttershy's
through your
wing,
nose
that's
will be
fine.
Painful, but probably
No,
not
I'm just
deadly.
kidding. I'm just joking.
If you so much as open your mouth to take a breath, I imagine your death will be imminent. You have to suppress your laughter, or your screams, to live through this one. Clever, isn't it?
Starlight didn't give her test subjects time to answer her rhetorical question. She pulled the lever attached to the side of the chamber, and her gas began to fill the enclosure. Each pony squeezed their eyes and mouth shut, making only short deliberate breaths through their nose. The gas burned as Starlight predicted, though there had been a presence of a laughing powder tickling their nostrils and daring them to respond. Starlight observed each pony's
Oh gosh.
behavior and
Wait.
jotted them down
Is Starlight gonna
individually
make
in her
them
notes.
sneeze?
Fluttershy's entire body was shaking, and she made occasional whimper noises. Starlight assumed that her greatest challenge was not to cry, as the moisture would attract the poisonous gas to her eyes. Rarity's face was turning a sickly shade of red, then purple, then blue. She was attempting to hold her breath for the duration of this test, rather than inhale the gas by any means. Twilight seemed the most calm under the circumstances. She had a thoughtful yet determined look on her face, as though she was simply meditating. Pinkie Pie, however, visibly struggled. Her body twitched and spasmed as she labored to regulate her breathing. Mentally, Pinkie was screaming at herself to hold on. She fought more against the laughing powder than the burning in her throat. Pinkie loved to laugh, and she loved to make her friends laugh too. No pony could laugh as long or as hard as Pinkie Pie, with the exception of Rainbow Dash. It seemed like an eternity ago that the pair of them had gone on a pranking spree together, and the deafening thought that it would never happen again tugged at Pinkie's heartstrings. Thinking of Rainbow in this moment proved to be her downfall. When the memories and the anguish proved too much, Pinkie cried out in a mixture of scream and laughter. Knowing that she had failed, she embraced her laughter.
What kind of laughter is that?
And in more of the poison with each outburst. She clung.
I see Pinkie turning gray. It's laughter of death!
Until the poison had done its work, leaving the party pony limp and lifeless in her restraints. Starlight shook her head and glanced at the timer on the wall that her subjects had missed. With only seconds remaining in the laughter test, Rarity finally had to suck in a breath through her nostrils. Moments before she cried out in shock and pain, the bell chimed and the gas receded.
My, that was lucky, wasn't it, Rarity?
Pinkie! No! Pinkie!
Rarity screamed at the sight of her newly departed friend. Her mangled face was a clear depiction of the pain and sorrow she felt at death. Pinkie's eyes were bulbous and bloodshot, with a glassy glaze over the pupils that turned them a translucent gray. Her mouth hung open, showing a great number of boils and blisters lining her cheeks, throat, and tongue. The tears that she had wept in her final moments
Dude, this
caused a
fic
trail
is
of
gruesome.
blisters to form the path that they took down her cheeks. Starlight calmly pressed the button on the side of the chamber that released Pinkie's body from the straps that held it. She tumbled to the ground for a moment before her body was magicked away in preparation for the next test.
Since I have you all here, it's only fitting that we resume with the generosity test.
Oh
Starlight
geez,
announced.
generosity?
She pushed 3 more buttons on the side of the chamber, releasing the remaining test subjects from their clasps that held them. Thick, transparent walls jutted from the ground between each pony, encasing them in their own individual compartments within the gas chamber. Attached to the walls on the pony's right were a series of 6 red buttons, 3 of which were lit while the others remained dark.
Generosity. Now that was a challenge. How could I possibly think of a situation where one would need to be selfish to pass? It certainly took the longest to create, though I am quite pleased with the results. As I'm sure you have guessed, these buttons in front of you correspond to the different sections of my clever creation. As Rainbow Dash, Applejack, and Pinkie Pie are unable to take this portion of my test, their buttons have been disabled. Rarity, Twilight, Fluttershy, your chambers correlate to the remaining buttons, respectively. If you would kindly direct your attention to the vents above you, you will see that they are in fact not entirely open, nor entirely closed. In a few moments, water will begin to pour into your chamber as quickly as those vents will allow.
Chambers?
When you press the buttons in front
What do you
of
mean
you,
by chambers?
the vent corresponding to the chamber
You mean they're gonna
of the
drown?
person will open further. Now, these chambers are connected to one large water vat, and if you choose to abstain from pressing any buttons, the water will pour into your chambers in equal amounts, leaving only a few seconds of breathable air at best. You will need to survive 5 minutes in these chambers after the water has stopped pouring in order to pass. So will you be generous with your precious oxygen, or selfish in the hopes that you will survive?
Starlight smirked and pulled the second lever from the side of the chamber, which released the water from the attached tank.
Twilight!
Fluttershy screamed in terror, pushing her body against the wall closest to her friend.
What do we do?
We have to choose, Fluttershy. We don't have any other options.
Yeah.
Twilight said,
Otherwise,
the
you die.
hopelessness in her tone sending a shiver down Fluttershy's spine.
But if we press a button, that means some of us will die.
Rarity cried, avoiding the downpour with her mane and tail as long as possible.
No, just one. If you and Fluttershy press the button for my chamber, you'll both have enough oxygen to live.
How do you know that? It's not like we're getting exact measurements in here.
It's a pattern, Rarity. Don't you see? Every test was designed to eliminate a player. If more than one player is eliminated, it ruins her precious test.
Twilight bitterly realized.
Then, that means only one of us can pass the friendship test?
Yes, Fluttershy. I think it does.
Each pony was now lifted from her hooves, the water having filled each of the chambers half full. Twilight pointed to the buttons on the wall with a stern
You know,
look on her
if Twilight's
face.
choosing to kill herself,
Do it! Do
and
it or we'll all die
Rarity
anyway!
and Fluttershy are the only ones left,
Equestria
Then-
needs you.
What's the princess of friendship without her friends? I've already
my guess
failed
is that
Rainbow,
Fluttershy's gonna win.
AJ, and Pinky. I couldn't be a princess of something I failed. You've got your animals that need you, Fluttershy. And Rarity, you've got to be there for Sweetie Belle and the other Crusaders now. You have to go on. Both of you. So push the button.
Rarity didn't respond. She reached her hoof in the water for the button to Twilight's chamber and pressed it. The vent lowered in response. Seeing Rarity make the decision, Fluttershy too pressed her hoof on the corresponding button and watched sadly as the vent lowered completely in Twilight's chamber.
I love you both. And please tell the princesses I'm sorry. Tell Shining Armor and Cadence that I love them. And tell Flurry Heart
Twilight started, but was cut
That
off
you
when
love
she
them
was
too.
submerged in the rushing water.
Or her.
Fluttershy and Rarity
them.
struggled to keep their mouths
Flutter
above
doesn't
the
have a
water
brother.
when the
Or
last
sister.
few drops trickled from the vents. From the corner of their eyes, they watched helpless as Twilight thrashed around aimlessly searching for any remaining oxygen. She reached out her hooves towards each of her friends, pressing them against the wall. Twilight's eyes fluttered shut, and the last air bubbles trickled slowly from her lips as the water began to fill her lungs. Within moments, the princess's body bobbed aimlessly in her watery grave. Starlight continued to take notes of the event unfolding before her, a smirk slowly rising from behind the parchment, while Rarity and Fluttershy still fought to stay alive. When 5 minutes had passed, there was a loud buzzing sound, and the water rapidly drained from a new series of holes that appeared on the floor. Rarity and Fluttershy chose to look away from Twilight, neither of them wanting the last memory of their friend
man.
to be the princess's lifeless body.
Oh yeah, and Twilight's
Starlight
parents.
ushered the two of them out of their chamber.
Told them that she
before
loves them too.
pulling a switch and turning off the lights within.
Well, I can't say that I'm surprised that Twilight's insightfulness would discover the nature of my tests, nor that she would sacrifice herself for her friends at the earliest opportunity. She always wanted to play the martyr. Now she has. I certainly hope it was worth it.
Starlight said, leading the final two ponies to the next test that awaited them. Rarity and Fluttershy were surprised to learn that the room where this nightmare began was seconds away from the massive chamber where they were held. When they looked back in the direction they had come, the stone wall blocked their view, making the room appear smaller again.
Oh, I've learned all sorts of interesting spells and illusions to prepare for this test. This room isn't as small as you might think.
Starlight said with a chuckle when she saw the confusion on her remaining subject's face.
So, was she right? Are you waiting until one of us is the winner before you end this madness?
This is a test. One does not win. One can only pass or fail. And if it weren't for Rainbow Dash's rash decision-making, we might have been able to take all 6 tests. But I suppose you can't plan and predict everything when making a test such as this one. The final test will have to end on honesty.
Starlight
Wait,
ushered the
honesty?
remaining ponies to the
But
center of
Applejack
the room
is honesty.
and indicated for
She's
them to
dead.
sit facing
No
each
one
other.
else could pass that
As
test.
each pony was seated, Starlight ignited her horn, and the same magic rings that had held them once made their reappearance. In conjunction, 4 magic balls of light that were shaped like apples appear, 2 in front of Rarity and 2 in front of Fluttershy.
Forgive my satirical humor, but I thought it was only appropriate for the honesty test to have a little bit of an apple flair. It really is a shame Applejack had to die first. I thought she'd make it this far. Even so, the test must go on. Now, there is a single word etched into the magic apples in front of you: chance and choice. If you both select chance, then your livelihood will be left up to fate. One of you will die at random. If one of you selects choice and the other chance, the pony who picked chance will be killed and the other spared. If, however, you both select choice, you will both die. You must touch one of these 2 apples before the timer runs out, or you will both be eliminated in the same manner as Applejack.
What are we choosing exactly?
Which of the cider mugs you will drink? I bought these apple ciders from the Apple family in anticipation of this very event. Prior to this test, one has been poisoned. The test is concluded when both ponies drink, and one of you fails. You have 2 minutes to talk and convince each other which choice you'll make. But will you be truthful or lie to save your own skin?
There was a silence that hung in the air. Fluttershy and Rarity stared into each other's eyes, uncertainty lingering.
Begin.
A timer appeared above the final pair of ponies. For the first few seconds, neither pony said a word, until at last the Pegasus broke the silence.
You should go on, Rarity. You can still grow and prosper without me. Your boutiques and your fans. It would be a lifetime of work lost. Not to mention you mean more to Sweetie Belle than I do to my animals.
Fluttershy, no! I could never compare my work to your own. Your care for these animals has saved lives, and no dress could ever amount to that. I could never continue my work after living through this ordeal. Any sort of happiness I achieve will be forever tainted on the idea that I had to watch you and my dearest friends die just to spare me. I won't let you sacrifice yourself for me.
Wait, that's not Emagag. That's its Anna
I think
Chloe
it's the
M.
only way we can live with ourselves.
I just
We
recognized
must
it.
take the chance and promise each other we will do everything we can
Huh?
to go on, if we are in fact the
Oh.
one who is spared.
Thought someone was at my
Rarity
door.
said as confidently as she was able. Fluttershy nodded and reached out her hoof while Rarity did the same. They made their selections, and all 4 floating apples disappeared, leaving a mug of cider in their place. Rarity and Fluttershy stared at the liquor in fear, picking it up with shaky hooves.
30 seconds.
Starlight warned, writing more notes on the parchment.
Together?
Together.
The pair of ponies brought the cider to their lips and reluctantly took a gulp. Neither of them could taste a poisonous difference, so each became confident in theirs that the cider was safe. Once each pony neared the end of
Oh,
their
so it was a
drink,
trick.
Starlight interrupted.
Oh, did I forget to mention that the decision you made will be etched onto the bottom of the cider mug for the other pony to see? That must have slipped my mind.
Both ponies almost dropped their mugs simultaneously when they learned this last bit of information. They looked at their respective mugs to see what the other pony had chosen, and the color drained from their faces.
Fluttershy,
Wait, what?
I'm so sorry.
Starlight smiled as the fast-acting poison she had created took effect, causing Fluttershy to cough as if she were choking.
I'm so sorry!
Rarity screamed, wanting to reach out to her friend. Fluttershy couldn't respond. She was desperately fighting whatever strange poison
And
was
I
taking
guess
its hold on her.
that means
All Rarity
Rarity
could do was
wins.
watch in horror as the life of her friend slipped away. Starlight levitated the mugs with her magic to inspect them. Rarity's mug had Chance engraved on the bottom, while Fluttershy's had Choice. Rarity's betrayal was clearly stamped on her face as she fought back a fit of nausea.
Congratulations, Rarity. You failed.
Wait,
Thanks
what?
to you, I have proven that magic is only as powerful as the ponies who wield it. And as promised, you are more than welcome to return to your home in Ponyville and seek whatever punishment for me that you deem appropriate. Though, given the fact that my magic has picked your friends off so easily, I caution you to choose your vengeance carefully. If I were you, I wouldn't want to anger some pony that powerful. Oh, but there is one last thing you need to do before you're allowed to go. It will give me such satisfaction to hear the conclusion of this test read aloud by the only living participant. It's only one little phrase, and then you're free.
Starlight took the parchment
phrase?
that she had documented on for the duration of the test over to Rarity, with only the last line visible. The unicorn read it to herself, then looked up at Starlight in hatred.
Here, I'll get you started. After thorough investigation and testing, it can be concluded that...
Starlight gave Rarity a frightening smirk, waiting for the unicorn to finish the sentence. She hung her head in defeat and uttered the final words.
What?
Friendship isn't magic.
Friendship isn't magic? Seriously? So... Yo! Dude, this is how it all ended? Dude, that is depressing, darn it. Yep, I am Shadow 007. Yep, it's Anna Chloe M. Mary Medley. Disclaimer voice. Goomba guy. Oh yeah, I get it now. Seriously, Starlight? You killed all your friends! What did your friends do to you, girl? Well then, guys, that was a pretty frightening story, but that was pretty darn amazing. AJ was the first to die, and Fluttershy was the last to die, and Rarity wins the whole friendship test thing. Jeez! First it was like ironing, and then lashing, and then stabbing, and then dying of laughter, and then drowning in some kind of chamber, and then death by cider. Jeez! I guess Magpie Pony just sometimes makes the most messed up fanfics ever that has to do with Grimdarks of My Little Pony. No offense to you, Magpie Pony, if you're watching this, I don't know. Anyways, I'm gonna end off here, because I need to stop and just think about what happened. Once again, guys, thanks for watching, and ahoy!